In the 1700s, India wasn't just a land of maharajas and opulent palaces, it was the world's undisputed financial superpower, controlling nearly a quarter of the global economy. But behind the glittering Mughal throne, a secret network of bankers held the real power. They were financiers so influential, they could decide the fate of wars, crown new rulers, and shape the destiny of entire empires. At the very heart of this intricate web of money and influence was one family, a dynasty of financiers whose name resonated across continents, the Jagat Seths, a title that meant bankers of the world. Stay till the end for the shocking truth about this man. This is the forgotten story of how a line of Indian financiers funded empires, betrayed kings, and, in a tragic twist of fate, unknowingly handed India's future to the British East India Company. From the decisive Battle of Plassey in 1757 to the catastrophic drain of wealth that fueled Britain's Industrial Revolution, this is the story of how money, not muskets, truly created the modern world. This film will uncover how Bengal's bankers financed both the mighty Mughals and the ambitious British, the secret deal that transformed the Battle of Plassey into the most profitable corporate takeover in history, and how Britain systematically extracted what would be the modern equivalent of $45 trillion from India. It is a cautionary tale of why every empire, no matter how powerful, eventually collapses when it loses control of its money. Our story begins not on a battlefield, but in the bustling financial heart of Murshidabad, the capital of Bengal, one of the richest provinces on earth. In the early 18th century, the Mughal Empire was showing signs of decay, but its wealth was still legendary. The engine of this wealth was Bengal, a province so prosperous it was known as the Paradise of Nations. It was a hub of global trade, exporting textiles, saltpeter, and silk to every corner of the known world. And managing this colossal flow of capital was the house of Jagat Seth. Founded by a Marwari Jain trader named Hiranand Sahu, the family firm had risen from humble beginnings to become the personal bankers to the Mughal emperor himself. By the mid-1700s, under the leadership of Mahtab Rai and his cousin Maharaja Swarup Chand, the Jagat Seths had built a financial empire that dwarfed any European bank of the era. Their network of credit stretched from Dhaka to Delhi, from Calcutta to Kabul. They minted coins for the Mughal state, collected vast amounts of land revenue, and issued credit notes, or hundis, that were honored across the subcontinent. Their influence was so immense that no ruler, general, or governor in eastern India could make a significant move without their financial backing. They were, in every sense, the state's central bank, treasury, and chief lender rolled into one. When the Nawab of Bengal, Alivardi Khan, fought off repeated invasions by the Marathas, it was the Jagat Seths who provided the millions of rupees needed to fund his armies and pay the crippling tributes demanded by the invaders. They were the silent partners behind the throne, the true guarantors of power. However, the political landscape of Bengal was becoming increasingly volatile. The British East India Company, once a humble trading entity, had grown into a formidable military and commercial power, operating from its fortified base in Calcutta. Tensions began to simmer between the new, hot-headed Nawab of Bengal, Siraj-ud-Dowlah, and the increasingly audacious British. Siraj, who ascended the throne in 1756, was deeply suspicious of the company's growing military presence and their abuse of trading privileges, which were draining the provincial treasury. His distrust was shared by the Jagat Seths, who saw the British undermining the very economic order from which they profited. The Nawab's patience finally snapped when the British refused to halt the fortification of Calcutta, a direct challenge to his sovereignty. In a swift and decisive campaign, Siraj-ud-Dowlah marched on Calcutta and captured it, an event infamously sensationalized in British propaganda as the Black Hole of Calcutta tragedy. For the British, this was an existential threat. For the Jagat Seths, it was a turning point. Although they had initially supported Siraj, The young Nawab's impulsive nature and his attempts to assert greater control over the state as finances began to alarm them. He demanded huge sums from them and other wealthy merchants, disrupting the delicate balance of power they had so carefully maintained. The bankers, fearing the loss of their influence and wealth under Siraj's unpredictable rule, began to look for an alternative. They saw the disciplined and commercially minded British not as conquerors, but as potentially more reliable business partners who would restore stability and protect their financial interests. This convergence of interests led to one of history's most consequential conspiracies. A secret deal was brokered between the Jagat Seths, other disgruntled Bengali nobles like Mir Jafar, and the British commander Robert Clive. The plan was simple yet audacious. The British would challenge Siraj-ud-Dawla on the battlefield, and key commanders in the Nawab's army, paid off by the conspirators, would defect at a critical moment. The Jagat Seths pledged to finance this coup, promising immense rewards to the British and securing a puppet ruler, Mir Jafar, who would be compliant to their shared interests. This plot culminated in the Battle of Plassey in 1757. The battle itself was more of a theatrical performance than a genuine contest of arms. As planned, large sections of the Nawab's army, commanded by the traitorous Mir Jafar, stood idle or deserted the field. For the British East India Company, Plassey was not just a military victory, it was the most profitable corporate acquisition in history. Robert Clive and the company's officials were rewarded with personal fortunes beyond their wildest dreams, paid directly from the Bengal treasury. A treasury now controlled by their puppet, Mir Jafar, and underwritten by the Jagat Seths. Mir Jafar was installed as the new Nawab, but he was a ruler in name only. The real power now lay with the East India Company, which had gained the right to collect taxes and control the trade of the richest province in India. In their bid to secure their financial empire, the Jagat Seths had unwittingly handed the keys of the kingdom to a foreign corporation. They had replaced a volatile but native ruler with a far more systematic and insatiable predator. The immediate aftermath seemed to justify the bankers' gamble. Their wealth and influence appeared secure. But they had fundamentally miscalculated the nature of their new partners. The British were not interested in preserving the old order. They were there to extract wealth on an industrial scale. The period following Plassey marked the beginning of what Indian historians call the Great Drain of Wealth. The company used its newfound political power to systematically deindustrialize Bengal. They imposed ruinous taxes, monopolized the textile trade, and forced weavers and artisans into a form of bonded labor, destroying the very industries that had made Bengal prosperous. The riches plundered from Bengal were shipped back to Britain, providing a significant portion of the capital that fueled the Industrial Revolution. The modern equivalent of trillions of dollars was siphoned from India, transforming Britain from a small island nation into a global empire, while plunging Bengal into famine and poverty. The Jagat Seths, the architects of this new order, soon became its victims. The British East India Company, now controlling the state's revenue, no longer needed a local intermediary. They established their own banking system and treasury, bypassing the Seths and rendering their traditional role obsolete. The family's power evaporated almost overnight. When Mir Jafar's successor, Mir Qasim, attempted to reassert Bengali independence and moved his capital away from Murshidabad to break free from the influence of both the British and the Seths, he clashed with the company. In the ensuing conflict, Mir Qasim, in a fit of rage and desperation, had the two leading members of the Jagat Seth family, Mahtab Rai and Swarup Chand, executed in 1763. The great house of the bankers of the world was decapitated. Although the family line continued, their financial empire was shattered, their political influence gone forever. The story of the Jagat Seths is a profound and tragic lesson in the dynamics of power. They were masters of a financial system that underpinned an entire empire, yet they failed to see that a commercial entity armed with military might represented a new and more dangerous form of power. In trying to control a king, they ended up creating an emperor far more powerful and ruthless than they could have ever imagined. Their fate serves as a stark reminder that when finance becomes untethered from national interest and collaborates with foreign powers for short-term gain, it can lead to catastrophic consequences. The wealth they helped the British acquire was not just used to build factories in Manchester and Liverpool. It was used to colonize the rest of India, turning a subcontinent of diverse and wealthy kingdoms into a single exploited jewel in the British crown. This is a story of immense power, a devastating betrayal, and the complex financial system that built one empire and broke another. The rise and fall of the Jagat Seths reveals a crucial truth, that the course of history is often decided not by the clash of armies, but by the silent, invisible hand of finance. It teaches us that true sovereignty is not just about controlling armies and borders, but about controlling the flow of money. When a nation loses control of its finances, it is only a matter of time before it loses everything else. The empire of the Jagat Seths crumbled, and in its ruins the British Empire was born. Subscribe to this channel for more financial mysteries around the world.